We're going live. It says we're live, so we should be live. Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and today we're going to be talking about Nintendo, as we usually do every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Brandon, as pretty much usual. He's still here. And we have a new guest this time around as well. If you watched Nintendo stuff on YouTube, you may have seen him before. His name is Arrow. Thanks for coming on, man. How you doing?
Guys? Yo, I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. So, guys, you know, he does Nintendo content too, makes videos multiple times a week, and also streams on Twitch, which I did not know about. So, definitely check out his channel.
I mean, I'm trying to get better at it, but I do try to stream there from time to time.
Yeah. So, you know, his channel is linked in the description below, so check out his YouTube channel. He makes awesome Nintendo content. Make sure to subscribe, like his videos, check out his Twitter, check out his Twitch. There's good stuff there for sure. One of the best content creators, in my opinion. Absolutely. And I figured it would be...
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And, I mean, one of the things that I know you're a big fan of, right, you talk about all the time on Twitter, is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So, when they announced... that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct, I was like, oh man, I should try and get Arrow on finally. Like, it would be awesome to have him on for this. And we weren't able to do the pre-show because I wasn't paying attention to my DMs. But I was like, all right, well, how about the post-show, right? And here you are. And then we got more news. We got news of a partner showcase coming tomorrow, and we also got news from Jeff Grubb, more definitively, because it's been rumored for some time now, that Metroid Prime Remake is supposedly coming for this holiday. So that's the focus for tonight's discussion. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Metroid Prime Remake Remaster, and this partner showcase, and I guess also the discussion surrounding this as opposed to a general direct, right? So I think we actually have like a pretty sort of like dense set of content to sort of talk about today. But before we get into that, before we get into the chat, guys, please let me know how everything is looking and sounding, by the way. I just want to kind of give the floor to Arrow to introduce himself, talk about whatever.
Oh, I'm good, man. I mean, I thought, like, if you guys wanted to talk about something first, then we could do that, but I'm down for anything. I mean, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm happy that you're here as well. But, I mean, I guess just to kind of start things off, right, how about you sort of just tell people about your love of Xenoblade?
All right, so Xenoblade is definitely a game that I'm very passionate about, but it wasn't always like that, which is kind of crazy too. Like, I was the typical like Nintendo fan who was like, oh, this is like some lame anime looking game, not for me, like this isn't the type of game that I should play. And then it was really like 2018 on Twitter, I made like a poll because I was gonna go Black Friday shopping, and I was like, what game should I get? And then a lot of people voted for Xenoblade 2 because that was like on sale, so I put it up there just because it was like one of those games that was there, and I was like, okay. And then people told me to get it. I got that, and that's pretty much where it all started, because then started playing it. I really enjoyed it, and then it was just kind of crazy for me because as soon as I started playing that and loved it, it was like Definitive Edition came out right after that, so I had that to go into, which I didn't experience. And then now we're getting Xenoblade 3 just like a year or so later, which is just crazy. But yeah.
It's kind of been like a Xenoblade sort of renaissance, right? Because on Switch we have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, but we also have Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then we have Xenoblade Chronicles Torn of the Golden Country, which is an expansion but has its own physical release. And
that too, yep.
I didn't mention it, but within Definitive Edition we also have Future Connected, so it's almost like we have 4 different Xenoblade games in this generation.
In a way, yeah, that's basically it. It's just
in
so
a way,
crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. 4 fairly long RPG campaigns, right? Like, I would say that, like, even though Future Connected is obviously the shortest one, right? That campaign probably could still be comparable to, say, like a campaign in a Pokemon game. You know, in terms of just like doing the main story. Like, obviously in Pokemon there are so many other things that you could do, but I only bring it up just to illustrate just how substantial the Xenoblade campaigns can be.
Yeah, I think like Torna was definitely like even more expansive than that. But Future Connected, like especially if you took the time to do all the side quests and listen to like all the character moments and things like that, you can definitely get like 20 to 30 hours out of that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you have some games that come out today that are only like 4 or 6 hours, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's not always just about length. There's so many other
for sure
variables, but you know, when we're not even talking about the main game, but like an expansion story, that's pretty significant.
A little extra thing on top of the main game.
Yeah, and what I kind of especially love about Future Connected, though, is just how kind of like it was a very on the nose teaser for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, right? Like, I think we definitely like all speculated about it, talked about it, but part of us, at least for me, like as much as I thought it made sense and I talked about it, there was also a part of me that wondered, is this a too good to be true sort of thing? But no, there was always a plan, or at least for a while, to get Xenoblade Chronicles 3 going. Future Connected was meant
that was
to
actually
that.
That was actually confirmed too when it came out. Is like if you got the art book for Xenoblade Definitive Edition, in like one of the messages, it says that Future Connected is going to tie directly into the future of what Xenoblade will be. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and the name is just like so blatant. Future Connected, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
They're connected. It's
and
crazy.
that's the thing is like if you played Future Connected, like a lot of people always say like it's not super exciting compared to the main game, which is obviously true, but like I feel like it's really going to be one of those things where once we come back to it after playing Xenoblade 3, we're going to be like, oh, this is what they meant with this, and like it's all going to connect together, and we're going to love it much more than right now, because a lot of people were just I know like I still had a good time with it, but some people were definitely saying it was kind of a little lackluster and they didn't enjoy it as much. But yeah,
I haven't gotten to play it yet, so I'll probably play it after I play Xenoblade 3, and so maybe I'll enjoy it more than I would.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a really cool way to experience it if you play 3 first and then see kind of all the stuff in Future Connected that teases towards it or something.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily... I mean, I could... Okay, that's the thing. Like, I have an idea of what Future Connected is supposed to sort of indicate beyond just, like, the Portal Rift stuff. It's kind of one of those things where, like, okay, it's not confirmed, so I guess I can talk about it. But there is like the 2 different queens and for both factions, the Agnes and Cleves. I kind of mix up the names, but I know one has the queen with the feather head, right? That's we most of us tend to believe that that's Melia. There was even like this one like video that came out that had like a dubbing for it or a subbing for it that accidentally suggested the names for the 2 different queens, that being
Nintendo confirmed it themselves.
Yeah. So I mean, point is that Future Connected, without telling what the story is, this is just straight from interviews and basically the summary of what it is. It's putting Melia in the forefront as the main character, and it's kind of building more of her character and where she's headed. And I do think that is important going into Xenoblade Chronicles 3, even though it's far into the future.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just want to see kind of exactly how she's going to be important to the game. Like, that's what's going to be like really cool to see, I think.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much there. But, you know, now that people are starting to roll in, let me check in the chat. Let me see if people are confirming that everything's looking and sounding okay. We'll read a few comments, and then we'll come back to this. So let's see here. And by the way, Arrow, if you see something in the chat that you want to bring up, you know, by all means, go ahead.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I just saw someone in there saying, hi, Arrow. What's up, man? How you doing?
Let's see here. D. Fox, hello there. JR Tolki, hello. Kitanu Tatsu, good evening. Robier 2, year 6 after Metroid Prime 4 was announced. Finally married, I'm gonna be a father. I was about to say congratulations, but apparently that's a joke. However, in a 6-year span, that could happen. Prime 4 still hasn't released. We still haven't gotten gameplay for it. For all I know, I haven't met her yet, or at least I don't think I have. I could be married and have a kid a couple of years from now, and then Prime 4 might come out. You don't know.
People I know have been married and had kids in that time.
For real. So much can change in just 2 to 3, 4, or 5 or 6 years, right? So, you know, appreciate life for sure, but it has been a wait. But at least based off some rumors, it does look like we are continuing that trend of Metroid goodness this year, but we'll get to that in a bit. Kitana Tatsu, I would love Bayo 3, but I think Nintendo would treat it as first party, not third party. So this definitely is delving in deep into one of our topics, but I'll kind of say,
on Twitter.
There's definitely some confusion about what a Nintendo Direct mini partner showcase is. Like, they kind of have to, it has two different qualifiers, which I think is interesting, right? Like, it's a Nintendo Direct, but it's a mini Nintendo Direct, but it's a partner showcase of a mini of a Nintendo Direct, right? Like, Nintendo's so careful about sort of qualifying this in this way because they really do not want to sort of create disappointment, I think. That's why I believe they go through all the lengths and efforts to sort of qualify in the way they do. But what's interesting about that is that still people are disappointed. I mean, I'm a little disappointed, to be totally frank with you, that it's a partner showcase. Not that I think the partner showcase is going to be bad. I'm actually anticipating some good stuff tomorrow. Just that I was kind of hoping that we would see other things, like maybe this Metroid Prime remaster, maybe like the overdue Mario Kart DLC, maybe an update on Breath of the Wild 2, maybe some actual gameplay for Scarlet and Violet, like treehouse footage. Like, I'm kind of waiting on some of these things that I think, you know, we should be pretty close to getting. So it is, to me, a bit of a head scratcher that we're not getting that news quite yet, and we're already past normal E3 time. So it's a little strange, but again, we'll get more to that later. The one thing I want to sort of focus on, though, is that with a partner showcase, it seems to be mostly focused on things that are developed outside of Nintendo. So when you think of it in that way, that could mean that we see Mario or Zelda or even Metroid in a Direct, but only if it's developed by someone who isn't internally Nintendo. In other words, something like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which was shown off in a partner showcase, not developed by Nintendo, developed by Koei Tecmo, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
They handled the Warriors games. So that was a very Nintendo-esque thing that appealed to Nintendo fans, but it was a partner of Nintendo developed outside of Nintendo, right? So then we talk about what if we see maybe a Metroid Prime remake tomorrow. The thing about that is that I think it's actually possible, and it really comes down to who's developing this Metroid game. I don't think we'll see it tomorrow, because I think the developer behind the Metroid Prime remake is the same developer behind Metroid Prime 4 and the original Metroid Prime, Retro Studios. I could be wrong, but I am basing this off rumors that are coming from the same places that are talking about the actual game itself. So, you know, we'll see. That is one of those things that could be lost in translation. Maybe it's not being made by Retro Studios. Maybe Retro Studios is just approving of some ideas, overseeing, but there's maybe a third-party developer that is working on it. So it could show up tomorrow, but I am not at all expecting it. Do not look at my thumbnail and say, oh, he's talking about a partner showcase and Metroid all in the same video. No, this is a discussion that just has different topics. They're not necessarily connected. But anyways, going into tomorrow, before we actually focus on as a topic, basically things that are developed outside of Nintendo. I don't know if you guys have any opinions on that.
Yeah, I mean, did you see some of the rumors already that came out about what games we could see potentially?
Yeah. There's a few. You can bring them up.
Yeah, the one I saw was about Nier Automata being shown tomorrow.
Yeah, heard that.
Which I am a little interested to see how that would work, because I feel like it can work on the Switch, but at the same time with Square, I don't want it to be like a cloud game.
Oh yeah,
that would really kind of not be the best way to experience it, I think.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't feel like something that the Switch can't run, but it does come down to how much time and effort and resources they want to put into that kind of project, right? Like, I think you basically could get anything to run on Switch. It's just a matter of...
You just have to put in the time.
Exactly. And,
try to downscale everything and get it to fit on there and stuff.
Yeah,
but, that's the thing, is I don't think Square is that type of company. Like, they put Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 as cloud games, which are PS.
Yeah.
Games. Upscale PS2 games.
Remastered PS2 games,
Yeah. That, the Switch absolutely could run that. There's no debate there. It's just, it to your point, or to our point, it just comes down to if the developer wants to put, maybe not even the developer, but the publisher wanting to put in the time and funds to get it running in that way. So, definitely I would agree with you that I do have some concern as to what this Nier Automata port might be. I probably won't get it on Switch because I already own it for my PlayStation. That's definitely, if that's coming, that's definitely a big deal kind of game that I think a lot of Switch owners could really enjoy. And I don't think it can't run well. It just, again,
Platinum,
effort.
Though.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of Platinum games on Switch.
Yeah, I mean they
Yep.
work well with Nintendo, and they work well with their lower spec hardware in the past.
Yep.
So
I
see
do
why they
feel
couldn't
like
make
it's one of those games that if it is coming, I really kind of wish that it came like 3 or so years ago instead of now. But I guess better late than never.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. There
they were working on other things for the Switch.
now I know this Nier Automata thing. I think at one point Video Games Chronicle implied that it might be Red Dead Redemption 2, and then the thinking sort of evolved from that to be Nier
that would
Automata.
definitely be Cloud.
Yeah, that I have no idea. Like
100%
that, I
no
actually
way
don't think
that they
can't
could
run on the
something
Switch.
Cloud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Nier Automata seems way more believable, way more up Switch's alley. We've seen similar efforts done for that. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. Simple. I mean, you look at Witcher 3, right? You look at Doom. It can happen, but it's just kind of like what's more believable to me. Definitely Nier as opposed to Red Dead Redemption.
I would say there's no way to make Red Dead Redemption 2 run on Switch in a way that actually looks like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, it would not look like Red Dead Redemption 2. It would
I
be
mean,
like some
Yeah.
very fuzzy
Like, if
looking
you think
mess.
The Witcher 3 is a hard port for the Nintendo Switch, Red Dead is like 3 times harder.
Yeah.
That's one of the most advanced games of the last
And
generation.
even Witcher, like it doesn't really look insanely good on the Switch.
Yeah.
No, it looks horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all kind of on the same page there. It could happen, but it would probably be a blurry mess. Like they would have to basically recreate the game with a different design, different geometry for it to look good. Like it's not that you can't have awesome open world games like Red Dead Redemption on Switch,
Right.
but they have to be developed with Switch in mind, with different resources and assets. Like it just has to be different. It's kind of funny. Like I've been playing Fall Guys on Switch recently, right? And I gotta tell you, I'm enjoying it. Fall Guys is a fun, little thing. It's free, it's cool, but it wasn't built for Switch in mind, and I can sort of see some performance issues. Now, some of that may be with like the online stuff, but I'm sure it looks and run better on other platforms. I mean, I've seen it, and it's a simple game. Like I don't think anyone's gonna really argue or debate, where most people won't, that Fall Guys can't run well on Switch. It just comes down to what was it made for, how much effort was put into optimization. So there's definitely like sort of a spectrum here.
Yeah.
But anyway, kind of moving beyond that though, beyond just like maybe Nier, the other one that's been sort of talked about a lot that I think makes a lot of sense is Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Like that's a game we've been waiting for news for quite some time.
That one actually had like a leak that happened a few hours ago. Did you guys see that?
October.
Did not.
Yeah. It's apparently coming in October now.
Makes sense. That's a good day for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was thinking originally it would be like August because that's when the first one came out. I'm pretty sure. So I guess it's not August now, and October works because there's nothing coming out then. September is obviously Splatoon, and then November will be Pokemon. So I guess October is kind of open up there, but now it's like, when is Bayonetta 3 coming out? That's kind of my question now.
Yeah.
Because I thought that would have been like the perfect October, She's a Witch, perfect game, October, Halloween time. But I guess
I mean,
Mario
it could still happen though,
could
right?
Both come out in October. Though.
Yeah, that's true. I guess. Yeah.
Let's take a look at last year for comparison, right? Like I think in October we saw Super Mario Party come out and Metroid Dread, and then in November we saw Shin Megami Tensei 5, and then a week later we saw Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. So 4 pretty major games.
So it is possible.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I don't think they'll come out in the same week, right? I think they'll probably be divided by a week or two, And was the date October 24th? Was that?
I think it was the 20th.
Okay, so I mean, maybe Bayonetta comes out a week later, right on time for Halloween. Like that's possible. I could see that happening.
Wait, actually, I'm looking through the calendar right now. The 20th is a Thursday, so I don't know why it would be releasing on the 20th.
But it's not Nintendo though, right? So typically,
it's not Nintendo. So I guess maybe because usually Nintendos are always on Fridays. But
right. And then when's Halloween this year?
On a Monday.
On a Monday. I mean, so I could see it coming out like
the 28th.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's still about maybe 8 days, assuming that 20th date is correct. That's still about 8 days removed from Mario Rabbids, which, by the way, two pretty different style of games that are arguably appealing to different audiences. Obviously, there's some overlap, but because Nintendo fans, but I think Bayonetta 3 probably won't be held back too much by Mario Rabbids coming out 8 days before it, you know?
Yeah.
So I could see it happening. Definitely. But we'll come back to the partner showcase stuff because I want to kind of go through the chat a little bit from the beginning, and then we'll come back to this. Let's see. JR Tolkien added me. Nintendo Direct more like Nintendo Indirect. Very, very indirect. On Twitter earlier today, I feel like I posted something that was maybe a little bit like anti-Nintendo. I feel like people might usually accuse me of being like a Nintendo apologist. I don't think I'm a Nintendo apologist. I don't think I'm absolutely not a Nintendo hater. I'm just like a hardcore Nintendo fan, but I do try to be sort of transparent about what I think. And I'll just go to what I said on Twitter. Right, this is what I said in reference to the partner showcase. I said I hate contributing to the massive negativity because, well, man, I don't like being negative all the time, but I can't help but feel Nintendo could be handling things in a better way. Maybe upsetting their fan base is part of their strategy. Like, I'm kind of joking there, but I'll just continue with the last thing I said. They have consistent quality releases coming, so it ultimately does not matter, though. And I really do mean that, right? Like, we know about a lot of good games to come this year, and this partner showcase ultimately is probably going to announce a few more. And then there still could be a couple more announcements after that. Even if we don't get a direct, we're still looking at a good year, regardless of how Nintendo shares the information. But what I am sort of, I guess, critiquing here is that I do kind of feel that Nintendo could have done things a little different. And I'm not trying to argue against the partner showcase. Admittedly, I do have some PTSD from 2020 and the partner showcases with no general direct and no like roundup new Nintendo game.
The first two were like really bad.
Yeah, but the later one,
I think I watched like the first one. I streamed it. And then I was like, oh, that was not worth waking up so early to stream. So then I just didn't stream anymore after that.
Especially because we were waiting for a direct.
People would tell me.
And that's what we got. You know, it was definitely disappointing.
Yeah, but like what you said, though, I totally agree with like this time, like we already know a lot of like Nintendo's big releases coming out. So I feel like it's not super crucial to get like a Nintendo Direct. Whereas like usually like last year, like in 2021, by like the June Direct, we didn't know about the games that were announced to come out later. Like we didn't know about Metroid Dread. Right. We didn't know about Mario Party Superstars. We didn't know about WarioWare. We didn't know about any of those types of things. But like this year, we already knew, like before the February Direct even happened, we already knew Splatoon 3 was going to come out this year. They already announced the year before that Bayonetta 3 is coming out this year. Like we already had so many of these big types of games that we already knew were coming out. So then the February Direct kind of just cleared up some of the games that are coming out from like the middle of the year towards like the kind of like right around to the fall time with like Mario Strikers and Switch Sports and games like that. So I feel like now we kind of do have a pretty clear timeline where it's like this month, of course, June, we had Mario Strikers, and then next month we're going to be getting Xenoblade 3. August is really the only one where it's like maybe potentially they could announce something in there, and that could obviously maybe just be a month where nothing happened either, because that also happened this month where the month of May we had nothing, which I always thought like they should have put Fire Emblem in that month because that was a much better time than having it be a week after Strikers, in my opinion. But I don't know, Nintendo's kind of weird like that. Right. But yeah, besides that, like we already know, like, you know, Bayonetta 3, we already know like Mario plus Rabbids now in October, Pokemon in November. So like I don't think it's super necessary unless they're hiding like maybe one or two extra games. Like we already know a lot of their game plan for the end of the year, to be honest. Yeah, and that it's a fantastic point, right? Like this year is much better than previous years because we don't need the information. We would just like the information, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to it's not like they have to give it to us.
I'm trying to think of one information I want that like definitely wouldn't be in this, and I guess the only ones that really come into my mind are probably I don't think we're gonna see Metroid Prime Remake in here because I agree with you. I think it's made by Retro Studios, so I don't think they'll show it. And then obviously they're not going to show Zelda. And those are like the two big ones. And then like there's like the other ones are like theoretical things that I don't even know about, like an early 2023 first party game. Like I don't even know what that would be. It's just like something.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
they
the only other thing that I'm kind of confused on is how do they plan on announcing? Because like we're still going to be getting another like wave of Mario Kart DLC, right?
Right.
Like, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like they're
I don't know if that's already
overdue.
confirmed. I don't know if that's confirmed, but I do think we're getting at least one more. So it's like I feel like that would be the perfect time to just announce it in a direct. But maybe for them, because it's DLC, they don't see it as like something that's super important like that to be in a direct. So they could just tweet it out one day for all we know and just be like, here are the next 4 tracks or whatever.
I do feel like it might just be a Twitter announcement.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it isn't like, to be fair, it isn't like some crazy like big new reveal. It is just, you know, ported old tracks.
But
So.
let's continue on that train of thought though, right? Like let's think about things that we need information for that we haven't gotten yet, right? And we're about to get assuming the rumors. I mean, I'm pretty sure that little leak for Mario Rabbids is probably true because it was on the Ubisoft website, right?
Yeah, I believe that one.
But
It seems like everything for that game gets leaked because even the game announcement got leaked last year, if you remember, right before E3.
and then the
So
initial
weird.
one also got leaked as well. So you know,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just leaking everything.
Ubisoft
Yeah, I don't
is
know what
kinda
is up with that
leaky.
game and leaks.
Ubisoft
Yeah.
doesn't have the best, you know, sort of tape for their
And they
pipes.
call Mario to get the plumber.
Yeah, they don't have the best
pills
plumbers.
down the
He's too
road.
busy
Yeah.
being in the game to you know keep up the
True.
non-leakage.
Mm.
I mean, they got him over there for, you know, his part in the game. I don't know why they didn't just have him fix the leaks.
Yeah. But to the point I want to make, right? So we haven't gotten confirmation yet, but we still need to get confirmation from Mario Rabbids, which is probably coming tomorrow. But you
Yeah, I
know,
think so.
there's a debate about Bayonetta 3. It might be there tomorrow, it might not, right? But we
I definitely
need
think it will.
we'll get to that. But we need a release date for those two games, right? We need I do think we are overdue for that Mario Kart DLC because it's 8
Yeah.
waves. They're supposed to come out between the initial release, which I think was February, all the way up until the end of 2023.
March.
I think it was March, yeah.
Okay, I think February or March in that
I think we
range.
looked it up last week and it
And
was
I-
March.
I think
Yeah, I think it was announced in February in the
You're
direct,
right.
and then it came out a month later.
that's exactly right. Yeah, it came out in March. But if the first wave comes out in March, there's still 7 more waves, and they're supposed to come out by the end of 2023. Like, you divide 24 months by 8, that's every 4 months. But if the first wave comes out in March, you know, we got to see it soon. Like, 3 months is already
it puts you right into like that July-August territory. So
like, we need an announcement. Like, I wouldn't be surprised when we get that announced it's going to be a shadow drop. But anyway, to kind of continue with my thought, though, right? So Mario Rabbids, Bayonetta, and the Mario Kart Wave 2. Like, all those things we need information on ASAP. We know about Pokemon, so it's not needed. We know about Splatoon and Xenoblade, so that's not needed. But, so, I mean, I guess those are the 3 things that we absolutely need in terms of known quantities. But who's to say there won't be some unannounced things that are coming? Like, I feel like it would be weird if there's nothing else new. And actually, there's something else that I am missing that we do know about, and that's Advance Wars. It's been delayed indefinitely.
That's true. Maybe that's the August game then.
Actually,
maybe was just
that
pushed
could
to
be in the
then.
partner showcase as well because it's not made internally.
True.
It's made by
Yeah, that is true. It's made by WayForward.
Correct. Right.
Oh.
Exactly.
So yeah, that could be there. I
So-
could see that happening.
So, I mean, most of those things can be in the partner showcase. Actually, I don't expect it, but hypothetically, could the Mario Kart DLC show up in the partner showcase too? Because who's developing the Mario Kart DLC?
I don't think they ever told us. I guess we
I
just
think
assume
it's
it.
just maybe it's just a small team from the Mario Kart studio. I'm not sure.
Wait,
Yeah.
what does
Somebody- I
the
think
actually?
internal.
I want to check what the Nintendo's tweet says. Like, does it just say is it only about third parties or is it like focused on third parties?
True.
It does say
You could see
upcoming
what
third
the,
parties. Tweet says so.
exact wording is.
I would imagine it's only going to be third party stuff. If it said like focused on third party, then you could say like the wording kind of implies that maybe there could still be something first party in there, but
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think we're just assuming third party because that's what a partner showcase has been, right?
Yep.
So, and I think maybe sometimes Nintendo themselves might be loose with their wording because they might change their mind on what that may be, right? So it is tough because who knows? What if we do get Metroid announced tomorrow, right? Which actually brings me more to my point. So, we have those 4 things already, right? Advance Wars, Bayonetta, Mario Rabbids, Mario Kart DLC. But there might, I think there should be a couple more little things that are going to come out this year on top of what we already know. The most likely one, based off varying reports from like Jeff Grubb, Emily Rogers, Direct Feed Games, is the Metroid Prime remaster. Supposedly it's coming out this holiday, November, in line with the anniversary for Metroid Prime. So saying there's nothing else coming, we still need at least the Metroid Prime thing, right? So we need information on Metroid Prime, and we're in July. We're entering July. How much longer can we wait before we get news on that? I don't think they're going to wait till 2 weeks before in October to announce this game. I think it's something that needs
maybe we're
time
just
to be
getting a
marketed.
direct in July, I guess. I mean, it could be major copium, but I guess maybe it's just possible that they just pushed it to July now. And like I could see it happening where maybe we get that July direct. They'll have like one last kind of trailer push for Xenoblade right before it comes out too. I guess it would kind of work to have it right there in mid-July maybe. And that's where they announce the other remaining games. It's just so weird because it's like so out of like the normal time that they do it. But I guess that's kind of what happens when you don't have an E3. And that's like the least favorite part about having no E3 is that like the E3 guaranteed always that you got a Nintendo Direct the second week of June. That's the only thing that kind of sucks about no E3 is like, because now it's like Nintendo can do whatever they want. They're not locked in. So we have to suffer kind of if they decide to wait till July.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting, all right? Continue this train of thought. I hoped and predicted against it because I really wanted that information. I still thought it made sense to have the Direct around the same time as usual, especially because most of the industry sort of maintained that schedule, just not Nintendo. But when we initially heard that E3 was canceled, something that we talked about, Brandon and I at least, right, is that with E3 not happening yet, to your point, Arrow, it really doesn't hold Nintendo back. But one thing that Nintendo kind of needed to do, which is why I thought we would get information around this time, is their third-party agreements, right? Which is why we had the partner showcases in 2020, because Nintendo needed to make good on certain agreements to have certain things announced by a certain time of the year. And what are we getting now? We're getting a partner showcase, which is just that. They're making good on certain agreements they made with third-party partners to get those things announced in this summertime near E3, but because there is no E3, Nintendo themselves is just gonna announce the information for their games whenever they want. We don't know what that is, which is very of stressful, but
it's just frustrating as a Nintendo fan,
right?
Because especially like when we all saw the Direct's return last year, we were all so happy because we were like, finally done with these partner showcases, and now people are getting like PTSD back today, where they're like, oh my god, they're back. So and I think that's the bigger fear, just like seeing this partner showcase, and now we just don't know when we're getting Nintendo information. Like there's no, like, dare I assume that we're going to get a normal September Direct as we have gone pretty much every year. So, that's the other like big pattern is like Nintendo always has either that February Direct in the beginning of the year to showcase what's coming until summer. Then you get that June E3 Direct, and then there's been a September Direct for like the last like 5 years, except for 2020, obviously.
But we still had information in September though with the Mario Anniversary Direct.
Yes.
Yep, we had that too, and then they also shadow dropped Age of Calamity, like the whole announcement for that game too. So.
Right. That's a good point. They could not do a September Direct this year and have their Direct be a little bit earlier into the year, like August or something.
If they do,
they don't want to do it next month.
Yeah, if they do it next month, and I'm not expecting a September Direct anymore. I think if something happens next month and we get a mainline Direct, I think that's it for this year.
Yeah. It's tough, right? And then there's a whole other question of when do we get Breath of the Wild 2 news? Because
I made a whole video about that because like I was legit like starting to get a little concerned, and like the thing is, every time you say this on Twitter, people get mad at you and they're like, games take so much time to make, be patient. And I'm like, well, I am definitely patient. I can wait for a long time if I need to. I just think it's kind of concerning now because like this game presumably is using the same map from what people have already analyzed of it. It's probably going to be reusing a lot of stuff from the original Breath of the Wild, and they've been developing it for like half a decade now, and we still don't have a title. We don't have like one actual beefy trailer to showcase like what's actually in this game. And it's just weird because like Breath of the Wild originally was showcased like for the first time. They gave you that teaser trailer in E3 2014, and then 2 years later in 2016 we already knew the name of the game. And it's just so weird with what's going on with this game now. Like I think it's
Yeah.
just kind of so weird what's happening behind the scenes. Like, I'm sure it's still going to be a good game and all, but it's just the way they're handling it is so confusing to me.
Yeah, and I think it kind of ties into this whole partner showcase situation, right? Because it's like Nintendo, as of late, and in truth, this is kind of something that Nintendo does, right? While there are patterns that Nintendo has followed, occasionally they disrupt that pattern. I'm not saying just to bother us, but sometimes that's how it feels. And one thing I was kind of joking about on Twitter is that maybe it's Nintendo's plan to sort of upset us, but maybe there is some logic behind this. I'm not saying they do this intentionally, but I think there is something to the idea of doing things in a somewhat unorthodox way, because guess what happens? We have discussions like this, right? And people are talking about it. Even though there isn't too many announcements actually made, in a way, we're marketing things right now, right? So the partner showcase is getting some sort of negative feedback on social media, but you want to know what else is being talked about today that's getting some positive reception? Xenoblade for sure, but also the Metroid Prime remake, right? That's kind of like the ray of hope. It's like, oh, look, there's another Nintendo game that's coming. Even though there's not a direct, we know supposedly we're getting one more big Nintendo game this holiday, right? At least one more. So then it gets people talking, and this situation, even though some people may argue that it's weird for Nintendo to sort of not tell us what they're going to do entirely, we're arguing and speculating about it, and in a way, it's sort of marketing their games already, you know? So it's interesting.
It creates buzz in the air for people to just say stuff.
There's a lot of things that were trending on Twitter today. Mario Kart, Zelda, Metroid.
Yeah, I saw Breath of the Wild 2 trending, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
There they go.
Yeah.
Even though there was no official news on it, which is just nuts.
Yep.
Just a quick aside here. I'm
Yeah.
seeing that I got an update from one of the channel members, Nate Esquega. Thank you very much for continuing your membership here. Nate says, been a minute, I don't always have time. Hope you have a good one, Andres. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 soon. Absolutely, it is coming soon. I am very excited about that. I know we keep tangenting, but let me run through some apps in the chat here, and then we'll come back to this. Let's see here. All right. Charles Shadell, thank you for the good luck. Hello there, Zonai Theorist. Okay, I'm seeing that some of you guys are saying that everything's looking and sounding good. Thank you. Thank you, Robeer. Thank you, Having Hope 5. Thank you, Zonai Theorist. Hello there, the Hypest. Giancarlo Adamy. Ubisoft did an oopsie and revealed that Mario Rabbids Sparks Hope. The game is coming October 20th. We did just mention that. Yeah, it's very, very Ubisoft typical, it seems. Computer Robots. Hi, everyone. Long time no see. And look at Brandon with his new hairstyle. I like the long hair. He likes the long hair, Brandon.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Luscious locks.
I guess this is a question for the moderators. Okay, so you guys can answer that in the chat. But yeah, all right. So we've kind of been talking about this partner showcase situation already, so I feel like we might as well just sort of continue it, and then we'll get into Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then we'll get into Metroid stuff. And Arrow, if you have to leave soon, I understand, but that's why we're gonna jump to Xenoblade after this. That way, in case you have to leave, we'll at least get to talk about Xenoblade. So you know,
That's cool. Yeah, I think I should be good for a while. So
okay,
we're good for now.
Cool. But you know, coming back to this partner showcase situation, right? It's strange that Nintendo's handling things in the way they are, but ultimately, as we've already mentioned, it does not really matter. Their games are coming. And even though we're like a whole bunch of chickens without heads running around right now, trying to figure out what's going on, because we're talking about it, we're marketing things for Nintendo, even though some of us are angry, some of us are upset, and they haven't announced squat yet, you know?
Yeah.
So
I said this on my stream. I said this on my stream yesterday, where I was like, if there's actually no like big Nintendo announcement, it's actually going to get a couple people to just buy Xenoblade, even though if they might not be super interested into it, which I feel like some people were saying like maybe that could actually be like a valid reason that Nintendo is staying silent, where it definitely looks like this is going to be like their, you know, it's a very big game. It's not like just some typical game that people can finish in like a weekend. Like a Xenoblade game, even if you spend like a lot of time with it, you know, it's like those are like 60 to 70 hour main stories. Those are very long games. So it could be very possible that Nintendo just wants people to be talking more about that, and if they don't announce something, there's going to be some people obviously who are just still, they're like, this isn't for me, I'm not going to get it. But some people might just be like, you know what, everyone's talking about the Xenoblade now, people are getting it, I guess I'll just join in on the hype to see what this is all about. And that's going to still get a couple hundred or maybe even 1,000 sales for them just doing that.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic point. Like right now you could argue that for some, I don't want to like make this like an entirely sort of like negative thing. But there are people that do feel that way, right? And then Xenoblade 3 might turn out to be like that beacon of hope, right? It's like this one Nintendo game, right? Like in this array of non-Nintendo games. And it just had an epic direct last week, which went really, really well, which we'll get into in a moment. I mean, you're totally right, Arrow. I think this could be a situation where Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is going to get a little bit more attention than it would have otherwise. And maybe that is part of Nintendo's reasoning here. Maybe they just...
It's also just so weird because, like, this game, like, just the kind of crazy stuff that it went through. Like, obviously, Xenoblade wasn't even supposed to come out next month. It was supposed to be a September game. Yeah. So it kind of does make me wonder, too, like, did that have some type of effect on, like, why we're not getting a direct, maybe? I don't think so, but it's just really kind of bizarre because that game had to be pushed forward, and because of that I'm sure they had to push that Xenoblade 3 direct forward. That's why we got it last week. So I don't know, maybe because of that it kind of just changed a lot of their, like, they had to rearrange a lot of the other things
there's been some
that they were planning.
It is some odd fluctuations. I'm going to throw another sort of wrinkle into this discussion. I almost don't want to, but it's on my mind. I think it should be mentioned just because I'm very transparent with these things. And that doesn't mean I believe this is happening, but it's just a consideration. What if the reason things are happening in the way they are is because Nintendo is planning some sort of event where a number of games will be showcased because they're also going to be announcing new hardware? That would be a reason to not have an E3 Direct if they're going to have something similar to, say, like, remember that January Switch presentation in 2017? Which was effectively a Direct, even though it wasn't quite a Direct, Yeah,
it wasn't branded as one, but it was basically a Direct, yeah.
Right. So
the thing with that, though, is I do think there's, like, I'm actually pretty confident that there is new hardware coming. I just don't think it's this year. Because, like, usually, like, Nintendo's pattern, from what I've noticed, is every 2 years they release new hardware.
Yeah, I agree.
Where, like, 2017 base Switch, 2019 Switch Lite. Last year we got the Switch OLED. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get something in 2023. It would shock me if we don't. But then I'm thinking, like, how are they... I feel like they're probably just going to save it like how the January presentation was in January. Like, I feel like they're just going to save it till then. And it's also like, that's also a whole other discussion, is like, do you think it's actually like a whole new generation of Switch and they're going to try to have it like alongside this one too, and every game still works both ways so you don't have to worry about getting it? Or is it going to be like the new 3DS Switch Pro type of thing where it's going to be just enhanced Switch and people can still get that too? So that's a whole other discussion. But like,
it is a whole other can of worms that I have opened up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll say that, in terms of what I think makes sense, like if there is new hardware coming, I think there's a decent chance it comes out before the end of the fiscal year, which would mean March 2023. And I only say that based off the recent sort of comments from the Nintendo president, because he was asked about new hardware, and I believe he said no comment. And usually...
that was so random too. I remember that, because like usually he's very just transparent.
Yeah. He'll say there's no hardware coming. If there's no hardware
he's like,
coming.
Nope, we don't have anything planned.
The only reason he couldn't say there's no hardware coming is if there was hardware
coming. Right, because he can't straight up lie to investors. He
even
can maybe
last
be
year
misleading.
With the OLED, he didn't do that last year with the OLED either. When somebody asked him like if there's new hardware coming, and then I think he said something along the lines of like, we have nothing to like say at this time or something, which is much different than what he usually just says, where it's just straight up no, like we don't have anything.
Yeah, like in 2020 at the beginning of the year, he was just straight up, hey, this is not happening. Yeah, no plans. And that's not what's been said this year, right? Now, does that, and I think that would apply more to the fiscal year than the calendar year, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's coming out this year, but like, do you guys believe, because I think that it's very likely that this new hardware, if it exists, is probably going to release alongside Breath of the Wild 2. I think that makes a lot of sense because
It's partially
if
why I
we
think it
look
was
at just
delayed.
what was delayed?
Part of me, I'm not. I'm not. I don't want to speak in absolutes, right? Because there's always differing possibilities. But I feel like one large possibility as to why Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed to spring 2023, which usually means March 2023, by the way, or March, is because for Breath of the Wild 2, it could come out alongside maybe new hardware.
Yeah, I made a whole video about that too, and I think it's pretty likely because the thing with Zelda is like Zelda is a very kind of crucial franchise that Nintendo releases with new hardware. Like we've seen it multiple times in the past, and that's kind of the thing that I feel like is, Breath of the Wild, of course, came out with the Switch when that released. Then, of course, we had, I think, Twilight Princess came out with the Wii. Then we had, like, of course, like Majora's Mask 3D come out with the new 3DS. Like they do it a lot with Zelda. Even Link's Awakening remake came out with the Switch Lite. So
absolutely,
it seems to me like they love pairing hardware and Zelda. So I feel like if Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year now, and supposedly new hardware exists, like imagine just like they finally reveal it and they show it, they show that game like enhanced, or if it can do I don't know, 60 FPS or something, or it's like actually 1080p and not 720 or 900p, and like it just looks better. That's a great way to market that system,
absolutely.
I think.
So let's, and I'm not saying this as 100% because maybe I do agree that there's new hardware coming. Maybe it doesn't even come out March. Maybe it comes out like the end of 2023 or 2024. Like those are possibilities. But for the sake of argument, let's say it is coming out alongside Breath of the Wild 2, and it does make sense, as Arrow just suggested. Usually, historically speaking, that we see Zelda and new hardware come out together. If it is both, if they're both happening this next March, when do we get information on those? Probably January. Because why would you announce new hardware, say, in October, so people don't buy it in Christmas, right?
There's no way, no.
Yeah, so January. But if we're getting a presentation like that in January, is there really that much reason to have, say, a direct in September? Especially with us not getting a direct in June now. So it's kind of like, because of circumstances, maybe Nintendo is sort of adjusting their typical pattern. It's not because of the pandemic per se. We're not getting the partner showcase because there are no Nintendo games. We're probably getting the partner showcase in the way it is because maybe one, they want to focus on Xenoblade. Two, because they already have most of their stuff sort of announced for this year. Yeah, there are going to be some things they still need to announce, but the big things are sort of still are already kind of known.
Yeah,
but
you already know about your Splatoons, your Bayonetta, your Pokemon. Like those are your big games this year.
Absolutely.
I don't think they're hiding. There's no way they're hiding like a Mario Odyssey 2 or something for this year. Like you got your big games.
But the other third consideration is maybe because of maybe new hardware next year alongside Breath of the Wild 2, they're just kind of thinking about how they should be positioning and marketing these things and spacing out their announcements, right? They're obviously doing something different because we didn't get an E3 Direct. So, if the later it takes for us to get like sort of that sort of E3 goodness we typically get, the less reason there is for there to be a September Direct, especially if there's going to be a January presentation, right? So January is not too much earlier from February, but we could be talking about getting major news similar to a February Direct 6 weeks sooner into the year. So if that's the case, and we're seeing the E3 goodness stuff being pushed up a little bit, that September Direct sort of positioning becomes less valuable. Like maybe that is sort of moved around a bit. And this is all hypothetical. There might not be a January presentation. There might not be new hardware. Breath of the Wild 2 might get delayed again. So like we don't know.
Oh god.
Yeah, it's just all just speculation and stuff. But I think when did they announce the Switch OLED? It was July, I think, right?
I think they announced the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED in July.
Yeah, so that was in July, and then the OLED came out in October, right? So what is that, like September, October, 2 months before? So if it is coming out in March, January does make sense. Do it 2 months before again. I could see that.
Yep, OLED was announced July 6th, so like it was what, like 3 weeks after E3. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if it's coming out March, like, hypothetically, then I could definitely see them doing it 2 months before again in January, like you said.
Yeah. That's not too much of a stretch. I don't think so. Yeah, for sure. But is there anything else you guys want to say? I mean, I guess how about some predictions for the partner showcase, and then we'll move on to Xenoblade.
Let me see here. I'm trying to. We already talked about
Bayonetta 3 will be there.
Yeah, Bayonetta 3 is one, and then I guess Mario Rabbids because of the stuff that leaked and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of all on the same page. Like, I think Bayonetta, if we don't get Bayonetta, that's kind of will raise more questions for me. Like, I think it's more likely we see Bayonetta, because if we don't, I'm really confused as to what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
I would either be debating.
Even partner showcases do have like a a finisher type of game at the end, like a big hitter type of game.
Yeah,
So I feel like that would be Bayonetta 3. That's like the perfect type of
or
game
Mario
to end it
Rabbids.
with.
It could
Or
be
Mario
Mario
Rabbids.
Yeah. I think we could get both, though, right? I mean, partner showcases, while they aren't maybe as hype as like a full-on general direct, they aren't
I think
bad.
it's 25 minutes long, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is a long one
too.
Yeah, so this might do a good job of filling out most of the year, save for a couple things, given that we already know about most of Nintendo's major offerings. But let's just kind of think about it for a second. Partner showcases have given us Monster Hunter Rise. They've shown off No More Heroes 3, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Age of Calamity had a presence in one of them before as well. So, like, those are some pretty big games. They were pretty exciting. So, you know, I could see some other pretty exciting stuff like a Bayonetta, like a Mario Rabbids in there. And let's point something out here. I think there is a difference between getting announced for the first time and just updating us on the game, right? Like, we're not even asking for this partner showcase to announce a new game. We're just asking for this partner showcase.
Know when like Bayo 3 comes out.
Right. Confirm when these games are coming out in this year, since they already told us both games are coming out this year.
Yep.
So I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Yeah. Do you believe like the Persona ports could come? Because that's one topic that I saw on Twitter a lot. I mean,
they would get a lot of
I don't know how they would do that. Like, I mean, it could very well happen because I do think like there's no way like those games can't work on the Switch, especially the older ones. And like, of course, when they did announce them in the Xbox presentation, like around E3 time, that was like it was like announced for literally everything but Nintendo systems. Like, you know, it's already on PlayStation. It was announced for Xbox and PC. It's only the Switch that's missing, and a lot of people just thought like, you know, okay, it was taken out for the Switch version because they're gonna have it in the Direct, or like Nintendo's gonna want to show that themselves. So maybe it could happen. I don't know.
Honestly, yeah.
I also don't know if it would be all three of them. Like, I don't know if it would be Persona 3, 4, and 5, like how it happened on Xbox, but maybe one of them at least, or I don't know.
It's tough.
I kind of feel like they could all. I mean, if they're already porting them to Xbox, I mean, they're not like super. They're very graphically. I'm trying to think of the right wording here. I guess undemanding. That's not the right word.
Yeah, they're not like, they don't have like super crazy high res textures or anything like that. They're more like the art style of it is very unique. Yeah.
I mean, like, there are some.
Already moving to Xbox. Why not make it for Switch as well?
What's that game?
Yeah,
No Man's Sky was recently announced for Switch. You know,
that I want to see more of, and that looked really good.
Has that not come out already? I thought it came out already.
I think it's released yet. I'm not sure.
I've
not seen anybody covering it, and I feel like if it released,
maybe you're right. It comes out this August. Sure. No, take that back. That was the initial release.
Okay. Yeah, don't trust the first date that comes up on Google ever.
Yeah, Google's a liar.
The Polygon one.
So
I'm gonna search it up right now.
I'm on Nintendo's website.
October 7th.
No, on Nintendo's website, it says release date summer 2022.
Okay.
So I could actually.
We'll probably see it in the event then.
Actually, I could see this maybe showing up in the partner showcase, and they give us like a hard release date for this summer. So yeah,
I think that's possible. Yeah,
maybe August.
I saw an article here that's saying that it comes out October 7th. I don't know if that's rumored or leaked or whatever, but I guess that's something to consider also.
Yeah,
maybe.
It could be delayed a little bit. That's possible. I do feel like this is something that's likely getting updated in the partner showcase, though, just because officially it's slated for this summer and we don't know when, and we're already deep into the summer. So, you know, I think tomorrow's a good time to kind of give us information on that. There's a couple things in the chat you're going to get to. I see we have a few people over 100 watching, which is awesome. Guys, make sure to like the stream. It really helps out. And definitely make sure to check out Arrow's channel. It is linked in the description below. But let me see here. Jean-Carl Adamy. It makes sense for Nintendo to announce a Switch successor. Switch is approaching its six-year typical life cycle of a Nintendo console. It is an interesting point to bring up, right? Like, I almost feel like I'm being maybe a little too needy, thinking that we can get Switch hardware announced early next year. But when you break it down like that, as simply as, well, next March will be the 6-year anniversary of Switch, is it really that much of a stretch to think Nintendo will announce their next hardware for the 6th-year anniversary?
I just go by the 2 years thing. Like, I feel like 2 years, every 2 years it's happened. If it doesn't happen next year, it'll be the first time that they haven't given us new hardware every 2 years.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and then if you line
And
it
I feel
up
like
with
that's what they're trying to do. Is like a lot of people say, like, you know, Nintendo's kind of trying to blend in like the whole concept of new hardware versus like a new generation, whereas like they just keep releasing so much like every 2 years now that it's not like you get like one system every 6 years, but instead you just have something to look forward to every 2 years with like small little updates over time.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like an iPhone thing or just a smartphone thing, but not as
basically, yeah,
not as
maybe
bad.
And like maybe that's like their whole kind of marketing strategy now because of how the Switch is like a very mobile system too.
Yeah,
like a tablet basically. So
I mean, if you do it like that, then Nintendo puts themselves in a situation where people just expect there to be updates every 2 years, right? They create that expectation. And people are aware, it's like, okay, this is my current Switch, but eventually I'm going to upgrade my Switch to a better Switch. The same way people upgrade their phone.
I think my issue with that format is how low the bar is on performance for the original Switch, and how quickly it would become extremely difficult and time and money consuming to actually make games that work on both systems. Without limiting the potential of the next gen Switch.
That's like the thing is like if they have like a Switch Pro, then it would just be like games would run on the Switch Pro and the normal Switch, and they would just be enhanced on the Switch Pro. But like, I don't know if they would do like a Switch 2 because I don't think that would be until like many years into the future.
Well, hear me out here. Say next January we're right, and there is a presentation that announces new hardware alongside Breath of the Wild 2. This is maybe called Switch Plus, which basically would be like Switch Pro, right? And it's kind of a situation similar to Game Boy to Game Boy Color, where it's like sort of current gen, but also sort of not at the same time. And then 2.5 years later, holiday 2025, they release another piece of hardware, and at that point, base Switch is phased out after 8 years or 8.5 years. Who can complain at that point? If you have a system that's had support for 8.5 years of...
Yeah, because the only thing is eventually people will have to... Like, eventually, like, if they keep doing this, eventually it will get to a point where they can't have 2017 Switches run their latest games.
I mean,
like,
just look at smartphones, though, right? Like, the initial iPhone does not work anymore. It's just after enough years, they announce, hey, this model, up to this model, will no longer work. And
I think right now it's up to like
that.
7 or something. Like if you have an iPhone 6s, you don't even get like the latest updates or anything like that.
Right. So and every couple of years they slowly phase out the old ones, and they could do the same thing for Switch. Not saying that's what they're going to do, but they might. I think it's
just
possible.
like a whole discussion. It's just
plausible even.
I don't know. I think that they'll do something like what the current next gen systems are doing, where there's a lot of cross gen for a few years. And then they finally get rid of the old systems. I don't know. We have the NVIDIA leak, and we've seen what they're working on for the Switch. And the power difference, it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, we also had those like NVIDIA leaks that happened, right? A couple months ago.
Yeah.
Even more smoke.
We know what the processor is. We know generally what the capabilities that they're targeting are for this next gen system, and it's just it would be very limiting, not in terms of just how games look, but in terms of ideas and concepts that they could do for games. The amount of power that they have would allow them to do so much more. I just like I don't even care that much about having like the craziest graphics. I just kind of want like certain games to
run at a decent amount of performance. Like I think that's like the biggest thing is that like people just want to be able to play a game like Age of Calamity and not have it be a PowerPoint. Like that's like pretty much the big thing. Like it's just like sometimes when you play like split screen with that game, it gets like really kind of shaky and laggy, and it's like that's really all we kind of want. Like we're not asking for the PS5 ray tracing, you know, 4K,
yeah, I mean, if I wanted
120
like,
FPS or anything, but like
on PC.
yeah, I just want like basic games like that, especially like also like, you know, like Xenoblade, having that be at least 60 FPS would be really, really fun. But because of it being on the Switch, you know, we have to be with 30 FPS and 720p for the most part. Yeah.
And I think that supporting the current version of the Switch for longer than just a couple years, past when the next generation Switch comes out, would be very limiting, not for the types of games and game experiences that they could push with the new hardware.
And the thing is, like the Switch, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, like the Switch isn't even using 2017 hardware. It still has like a old Tegra chip in there from 2014. So it's like the system isn't even like technically 5 years old. It's like an 8-year-old system in terms of hardware wise. Just
it's
the power.
Using the 2017 version of the 2015's chip.
So it's still a very like old, like just because at that time they already had a newer one they could have used, but Nintendo used the other one so that they could cut costs on that.
Yeah. And now they're using essentially the newer chip cut down to perform the same as the older chip.
Yeah, it's just really random with what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, we are due for more power. It's just kind of, you know, how Nintendo decides to sort of push that, right? But we can come back to this in a bit. I do want to like dedicate some time to talking about the Xenoblade Direct, because that was a pretty significant Direct, and I know we're gonna talk about Metroid in a bit, so I want to take this moment now to talk about Xenoblade. I went into that Direct not necessarily like incredibly hyped, just because I already know I know what I'm getting. Like, I'm gonna love the experience. It's gonna be amazing. I love Xenoblade. It's one of my like top 4 or 5 franchises. Like, I'm gonna love it. But when I went into the Direct, I'll say that typically when I see Xenoblade marketing, I'm not impressed. It's just when I finally get the game, I'm impressed, right? And
yeah, low key, like I feel like especially with Xenoblade 3, like I feel like their marketing is not really the best. I think some people would probably disagree, but I just feel like they are not.
It might be better. I think it's better than Xenoblade 2, but
the thing with 2 was I was not into Xenoblade around that time, so I don't remember really how they did it with 2. But from what I've talked to with like Xenoblade fans and stuff, they've told me like Xenoblade 2's was kind of just all over the place with how they did it. But like Xenoblade 3's also, I feel like the stuff that they tweet and the stuff that they kind of reveal sometimes, it doesn't feel like the right way to kind of market it.
I would say
like we can talk about that when we start talking about the Direct. Like I'll talk a little bit about more like what I mean. But, yeah.
I mean, you know, but as I was saying though, right? Like getting into that Direct, like when it first started, I actually thought it was kind of bad. Like the first few moments, like I thought the theater scene was cool, like the concept of it. But when I heard that voice acting in English, I was like, ooh, that's kind of cringy. I
saw your video and I was like, he thought so too.
Yeah, like I didn't like the voice acting at first, but my complaints kind of stopped there though, right? Because once they jumped to that other guy with like the pale skin and the blue, his voice is actually sounded kind of cool. It's like, oh, this is the big bad, or one of them. He sounded pretty cool. And that's when my tune sort of started to change. So it was just for like basically like the first 15-20 seconds where I felt things were a little awkward, and things got progressively better throughout the Direct. Like they had some pretty solid trailers. They explained the story of the game, learning that everyone lives for about 10 years. That's crazy. It's a crazy concept to think of, that you only have 10 years to live and your entire life is on the battlefield. You know, that's cool stuff. We knew about how they sing with their flutes. I forget the name of what their roles are, but Mio and Noah, right?
Offseers, yeah.
Like that's a very cool sort of poetic thing to see, and like we can. There's definitely gonna be some cool, like somber, emotional moments with that sort of role that they have. But you know, they go into the story. We see more of the world. And then they break into this segment where they're saying what it is described as like a boundless world. Like there's been the questions as to if this game's gonna be truly open or not. I don't think the Direct fully answered that question, But on the
Yeah, I
Nintendo
agree.
website, they refer to it as open world. And when you describe the world, there's there's a lot of open world like things that I thought were really cool, like how, like, for example, you just see in the environment there are just going to be random fights between both factions, and you can deal with that. There's gonna be a whole bunch of different colonies that you can interact with, and there's giant side quest trees. Like, it does seem like they're putting in a lot of stuff in there that's going to support a large world with a lot to do.
The open world
exciting.
design just screamed X to me. Like, the way they did the design of the world was very open. You saw, like, a lot of places it was just like huge open environments with like nothing, like no like major things of interest around.
That's the thing with like how I talk about with like the marketing for this game is like at this point we still don't know if it's like truly open world or if it's still like what Xenoblade 1 and 2 were. And that's the thing where it's like if this game actually is open world, where like, you know, there isn't like loading screens and the world is interconnected and stuff, then they did a very poor job at marketing it in my opinion, because like we don't even like we barely know. Like on their website it says open world, but I don't know if they truly mean if it's like Breath of the Wild or if they just mean like, you know, you're gonna have these open areas like Gara Plains, like you can just go wherever you want kind of. So that's what's kind of weird about how I feel like they're treating the marketing for this game, because open world, like if it is like this, you know, fully interconnected world where like, you know, you can go from like a desert area into like this fantasy snow area seamlessly without like a loading screen or having to like wait for it to load. That's a big deal for especially like a big kind of game on the Switch like that, like a big story driven game. Like that would be insane. But
this is my speculation.
I don't know.
I'm speculating because like, so you look at Xenoblade 1 and on the Wii, that was impressive what they did with the sizes of the areas, right?
Yeah.
But then X was like a true, straight up open world. You can go anywhere, right? You're only limited by your ability to jump, climb, and fly. And as you gain those abilities, you can do whatever you want.
That's a full open game, yeah.
Then Xenoblade 2 has large open areas, but they're segmented. I feel like 3, and obviously I don't know this, when we get our hands on the game in like, what, less than 2 months, we'll really know, maybe before that. But I feel
just
like
over a month.
3 is going to be sort of a cross between X and 1. So, like, it's not going to be quite X and it's not going to be quite 1 either. It's going to be somewhere in the middle where there's going to be a lot of areas that are very open, and they're going to be mixed in with other areas that are very open. Like, we've seen different ecosystems sort of blending together, right? Like, you can go from a cold area to a desert to a forest.
Yeah, they've already shown some of that, like, in the videos. Like, even in the direct, like, you got to see some snow areas, like, connected to some grass. And that kind of implies that you can just freely walk over from those areas. But, like, at the same time, there's no official confirmation, so you can't say for sure.
Yeah, but when we see the map, though, right, it does seem like there's straight-up limitation, right? Like, you see, like, see-through parts of the map, which to me imply that there's clearly boundaries all throughout the world you explore. So I don't think Xenoblade 3 is going to be a situation where you're going to see a giant mountain, you can climb to the top of the mountain, and then go to the other side of the mountain without any sort of, like, loading screen. I think there's going to be maybe natural barriers that don't allow you to see what's on the other side, versus X, where
Xenoblade
you could
games
go
usually,
through that.
Yeah, Xenoblade games usually don't have that type of, like, crazy, like, being able to do a lot of stuff like that anyway, like climbing and all of that. So that could be something that could just be limited because they have like that whole field skill system, which apparently is in this game with like the grind rails and like climbing certain vines and things like that. So maybe that could be how they kind of restrict you from being able to go to certain areas.
And they can use natural barriers and still have it be an open world with no loading screens. You don't have to load in another area, or it doesn't have to not be loaded for you to not be able to go there necessarily.
Open world just masks loading, right? Like it's just so you don't. There's no interruptions in your gameplay.
You use a
like for me personally, it's not even like super. It's not even super important. Like I don't mind if it is an open world. Like because I feel like for a game like Xenoblade, it makes sense if it's not open world anyway, because it's a story-driven like game. Like they'd want you to go in a certain order and then go into certain areas and experience it. So I don't even know if it is open world, how they would even do it. Like if you get to like the desert area and you can just wander off into some snow area that's like the late game. I don't know how that would exactly work.
But in the direct though, I believe, and I have to go back to like get a perfect quote, but I believe they did talk about being able to do things at your own pace to some extent when they were kind of talking about the boundless world and doing the colonies and the quests. So I do think the way the game is being designed, which is not too different from pretty much every Xenoblade game, right? There's a lot of side questing and backtracking, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem like there's maybe a little bit more of a focus on this one and kind of going in different directions and doing different things. Like, so it don't, and this is just my interpretation, right? Again, I have to go back, so I could be off here. But it kind of felt like they were suggesting that two different players will have two different experiences of the game because they might visit different colonies with different side quests. Like, it doesn't seem like every town in the game is mandatory for you to explore. The world is that big. There's just going to be a lot of side questing options.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got.
You know, in case that would be one hell of a game to like replay, because then that would mean you could discover new things and go in different paths and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Maybe. I feel like it will still be more very narrative, story focused.
Yeah, I still think they're gonna make you go to like certain areas first or something. Yeah. But like, I don't know.
Maybe
well,
there's
something that popped up to me though are the heroes. Like my interpretation of the heroes is that they'll basically like maybe like blade quests, right? Like you'll meet a hero, you'll have to accomplish certain tasks or side quests for them to join your party, right? And you're not going to be able to get every hero, or at least you may not have to, I should say, right? They're going to be kind of like blades. But, I mean, and on that note, though, I do feel like they're an improvement over blades, because I didn't really like the gacha system. This seems like it's a bit more...
Most people didn't.
More concise, a bit more focused, and the characters we are getting are perhaps going to have a little bit more... they're just going to be a bit more focused, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, something else that I kind of noticed that was interesting to me, and I was watching your video, Arrow, and you mentioned the sort of like the pods, right? Of the, like, I guess the soldiers,
the people.
Like the people. The question I kind of have is, right, and I don't know if we have this answer yet, but they live for 10 years. Do those 10 years start from birth? Or do those 10 years start after their training? Because we do see those flashbacks when they're kids.
Yeah, I think that's something that we don't exactly know for sure. But like the one thing that I remember on the comments of that is that in one of the lines in the direct, the characters just say like, "Oh, if you die, we can always grow plenty more," or something like that, something along those lines, which kind of implies.
There was a line where one of the enemies was harvesting the soldiers for power, and he said he can grow as many more as
like they're implying like they can just always create more soldiers. So maybe that, like, people were saying maybe that's how it happens, where it's like just there's a whole bunch of just people that are being created in these capsule things, and then that's how they come to exist. And maybe they don't actually have like birth, like they don't actually start out as like infants, but they're just straight up like 10 years old, and they grow to 20 or something. Maybe that's just like their lifespan is 10 to 20.
That's interesting. That maybe that's what it is.
That's kind of how I saw it, because we never
that's
see
the only way I could see it.
They don't marry or have kids, right? Because they're just always on the battlefield.
The thing is like in Xenoblade games, like in Xenoblade games, usually the protagonist usually has their parents who are passed away for the most part. Like Shulk's parents are dead, Rex's parents are dead. But Noah, I feel like in Xenoblade 3, he's not going to have parents. Like the way that this world is created, they just make these characters like from these pods because of how this evil organization is just controlling this whole world. So he's just not even going to have parents. He's just going to have he's just going to be a part of this world, like, I guess spontaneously.
Yeah. I guess that's going to be a big thing of the story, right? But something that kind of I found interesting though, right? Because you also noted like there's an infinity symbol in some of the characters. And I wonder, and what's fascinating about that is that what if the infinity symbol is sort of like saying infinite life versus these people who have finite life? That might be sort of like a motif we see throughout the game, which it's another thing we're going to kind of learn about, I think, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, the infinity symbol, people also say can be, you don't see it in their eyes like when they show it to you in the videos, but like people are saying it could somehow be related to the whole like Ouroboros thing, where like the whole concept of the Ouroboros is like the dragon eating its own tail. But you can make an infinity symbol like that with the dragon still eating its own tail at the end. So
that's interesting.
Maybe there's still some connection in there.
We know that the time that they live can be a commodity in a way. Like we hear her saying that she doesn't want other people to give up their time for her, because the main character, what's her name? Is Noah and
Mio?
Is it Mio, yeah. We
Like
know
the
that
drink?
she only has what, like 3 months left to live,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you hear in the trailer people like offering her their time, but she doesn't want it. So it seems like you can sacrifice yourself and give other people more time to live, which is
Yeah, that's something that I'm
strange.
not really sure,
Because
but
it
if you
doesn't
can
seem
do
like they
that.
actually die after 10 years. It seems like they get murdered by the queen if they
Right, like,
survive
what
for 10
happens
years.
if you
Actually,
just choose
you might
not
be
to?
onto something. You might be onto something because there is that one character. I don't know if you guys know from the Kevis side. Her name is Ethos. Actually, my profile picture on Twitter. That character is there's a cutscene of her that we've seen where she's like really young and she saves like child Noah. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah, I
These
know
were,
what you're
like, posted
talking
on
about.
Twitter.
It's a blue hair sword lady, right? With the glowy red
Yeah.
eye? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, there's a cutscene that like they uploaded just on, I think it might have been on Nintendo of Americas too, but there's a scene where like she's young and she saves child Noah, and the tattoo on
I don't
her
think I've seen
is like
this.
fully red, and like the tattoo we found out is what like tells you how much time you have left, because even in the direct, like
Yeah.
he looks at the tattoo and
Yeah.
says like 3 months left. So the thing though is, as an adult though, she looks much older than like 20, presumably, if they live for 20 years, right? Or like 10 years,
Yeah.
start from 10 to 20. So maybe then that plays along into your theory where she's still around because people kept giving her so much life, so she can live past 20 and she's like, what, 30 now or whatever.
Yeah.
So
That's
I never
interesting.
thought, I literally just thought of that right now because you said so. And I feel like maybe you could be onto something there.
Another consideration I have, and this might be too simple, like it may not be as easy as this, but what if, but they talked about how like you either die in battle and then you sort of go to the flame clock, right, in battle, or you make it all the way to your 10-year term and you get to be sort of murdered publicly, but in celebration, right, in front of your queen.
Yeah.
What if you just, what if your 10-year, like hypothetically, right? Like, what if your term comes up and you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna go see the queen. Like, do you just
Don't feel
die,
like it.
or is the
Yeah.
act of going to the queen what kills you, right? Like, maybe there's like such a political, socioeconomic system in place where you don't, you're just conditioned to believe that you will die no matter what. So people just follow this blindly, but in reality, they're not gonna die unless they actually abide by the rules. You know what I mean? Like, what if
Maybe.
they
Very
just
well be a
escape?
thing.
Feel so worried about it, and why are people giving up their time for her?
Because they believe it.
I guess if they don't know, but like, if we're thinking about this, why would they not also be? I don't know.
I
Seems
mean,
weird.
it might be
They-
more. It might be deeper than that, right? Or harder
Yeah,
than
yeah,
that.
I'm pretty
Maybe
sure
the tattoos.
There's many layers to it.
Maybe normally they would live longer, but there is something they do that binds their life to some sort of system, right? Maybe that's what those tattoos are related to. And maybe in order to survive, they have to sort of cleanse themselves of whatever it is that's going to suck out their life force. It could be something like that, right? I mean, because obviously the idea is that they want to find a way to live longer than 10 years. Like, that's their goal.
Mhm.
Part of it, at least. Right? So, there's going to be something that they're going to be able to do, or at least the idea of it's going to be passed around that they can find a way to live longer. So it might be something to that effect, where getting rid of their tattoo might be what it takes to survive. So, I don't know. There's a lot here for sure. And I know we sort of jumped away from the boundless open world stuff, but something else that should be mentioned is that there is boating stuff, right? Like, it's clear that this world is huge. It's huge. So, like,
And that's also another thing is like the boating segment. Like, if that's actually going to be a part of this game, if there's other things too, that's a pretty big thing to talk about. Like, and the thing is, like, the direct did not talk about this at all. They did not even like mention it or anything. They just showed you like a 2-second clip of a boat in the water, and it's
Right.
like, if there's going to be more types of vehicles you can get to, like if there's like a way to like
the rails.
Yeah, like to drive something on the grass, or if you could fly around in like mechs or something in like Xenoblade X, like those are really cool things that people would be very excited about, and that's the type of stuff you would want to market and actually show like in trailers and stuff, because then people would be like looking at that game and be like, wow, you can actually fly around in this world and like this robot thing, that looks pretty fun. I'd actually be interested in playing a game like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
I
at
don't
this
know.
point, the purpose of the direct seemed not only to, it seemed more to talk about like the fundamentals of the game rather than to showcase a bunch of new features. Because in honesty, like a lot of the stuff we found out wasn't really things that they hadn't already shown.
Yeah, it was just stuff
it
in
was
other
just more
Xenoblade games.
clarification of stuff that we'd already seen. There wasn't a whole ton of like brand new stuff we had never seen in any of the
Most of it was sort of
previous trailers.
speculated on. One
Yeah.
awesome confirmation was that you can actually switch your characters in battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And that's also another thing where it's like that's a big feature that people have been asking for like years, and they spent like literally like 4 seconds just saying like, oh, you can switch characters mid battle, but like that is something they should have like definitely focused a little more on, in my opinion. Like they should have shown like a clip of you going through like all like 4 characters in battle, or switching through like 6 characters in a fight, because that would be something really cool for people to see. And they just like glossed over it for like 2 seconds and like, yeah, you
It
can
felt
also
like the
change which character you
Direct
control.
focused a lot on just trying to explain Xenoblade to non-Xenoblade fans.
I mean, it was almost a 25-minute direct, right, on one game. So like, it's kind of crazy. And you know what's really interesting, right? If you think about how long the Xenoblade Direct was and how long this partner showcase is going to be tomorrow, you
Same
bunch
amount of
them
time.
together, it's almost a 50-minute presentation. Now, let's go back to 2018. There was a direct where half the direct was based on one game. Now, that one game is the best-selling fighting game of all time in Smash Bros. Ultimate. But, just saying, like,
Yep.
you know...
It is very true. And I mean, people did say like, you know, whenever normal Nintendo Directs happen and some RPG game gets like that big middle segment where it's talked about their mechanics and stuff for like a good 20 minutes, people always get really mad and say that Direct sucked. But like, it happens from time to time. I mean, like even like last year, the February Direct had that whole Project Triangle Strategy stuff explained in there, and people were complaining about that. But like, these types of RPG games usually get like a big segment like that because they need to explain the mechanics and how the game works. And Nintendo fans always complain like, oh, it takes up too much time from normal Nintendo Directs, which is why Nintendo gave you this now. Because I do feel like if we didn't get a Xenoblade 3 Direct and we got a normal Nintendo Direct, there would have been a long Xenoblade 3 segment in it anyway. Like they would have talked about a good amount of stuff for like 12 minutes.
And it might have
anyway
felt like it was dragging on, right? And
exactly.
You know, in truth, though,
people would have gone on Twitter and said like, you know, this Direct was terrible, this Direct was trash because it talked about Xenoblade for 13 minutes. When it's like, that is why we had a Xenoblade Direct, because you don't have to worry about that now.
It's a great point, and I'll say this: I feel like I'm a pretty big Xenoblade fan, right? Like I'm one of the bigger Xenoblade fans. If I watched a 45-minute Direct and they dedicated 13 minutes to Xenoblade, I actually would be a little annoyed, just because I feel like that would affect the flow of a Direct. Because when you watch a Direct, you want to see a number of things. So I feel like
I don't like games mechanics being explained in Directs. I feel like you should just show the trailer for the game and then move on to the next thing. Like that is what people are there for. They just want the quick news like right away.
Right, but a game specific Direct though, that's where you do it.
What did you say?
A game specific Direct, that's where you do it.
Yeah, game specific Directs. Yeah, those ones I agree with. And that's like also another thing. It's like with how you mentioned the E3 2018 Direct, where like of course Smash Bros was the big focus of that Direct, and of course everybody loves Smash Bros and it's very popular. But there are people out there who don't like Smash. I mean, it's rare, but like you definitely still see them. And for them, that Direct must have been awful to like sit down and like watch that.
I did see people complaining about how much.
Yeah, I mean, like, because Smash is great. I love Smash, but like it really felt to me like they should have just shown the Everybody Is Here trailer and then moved on to the next thing. Because then when Sakurai sat down and started explaining, oh, here's how we changed the Ice Climbers, here's how we changed Pikachu, here's how we changed...
Even I was just like, this is...
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is great. This is very exciting. I love this. I love this game. But like, there's people out there who just don't care about Smash, and they're not going to be getting Smash, and they had to just sit through 25 minutes of that being explained in hopes that maybe there's going to be something at the end. Maybe they're saving an Animal Crossing something. And then he's just like, no, here's Ridley. And then that's it. That's our whole presentation for this year. It's like, I don't think it's the right way to do it, especially in like a Direct. Like they could have just had Sakurai showcase the trailer and then say like, if you want to learn more about Smash Ultimate, stay tuned after this Direct and, you know, we'll go into more detail or go into a treehouse segment or something.
Yeah. So, you know, and that kind of brings us back to this whole partner showcase situation, the lack of an E3 Direct and the Xenoblade Direct. I'm sure there's usually more than one reason why something happens, right? Part of it may just be that they're like, hey, we need to have a proper showcase of Xenoblade 3. And, you know, that's why they had the Xenoblade Direct. But also, Maybe also they had some third-party agreements that needed to be done, which is why they're doing the partner showcase. But then also, most of the things that we're getting this year, we already know about, save for, I'm assuming, a couple things. And that's my assumption. I could be wrong on that. Maybe the Prime remake is a rumor that's not going to happen this year. Maybe there isn't anything else. But we don't know, right? But I'm simply basing this off history. Typically, there's at least a couple more announcements to fill in the gaps.
I do think there's another game-specific direct still left, and that's going to be for Splatoon 3.
I agree.
Splatoon always gets its own directs also. Like, there was one for Splatoon 2, and then there was also one for Splatoon 1. So I'm sure, and like how they usually do it, it seems like they like to do it a month before the game comes out. Like with Xenoblade, they did it in June, game comes out next month. So I would guess in August, like sometime around late August, middle of August, you can expect your Splatoon 3 direct, and that'll go into like, how the new weapons change the game and like how there's going to be a new campaign and the new modes and all that stuff.
I wouldn't be
Just like how this
surprised if we get that and they announce a test fire like in between the direct and the release of the game.
I think that's also guaranteed too, because every Splatoon has had a test fire, so
they need to test the online pretty much every time to make sure it's good to go.
Because this Splatoon will be running on the new version of Nintendo's online service, because it did update that last year, I think.
That is true, yeah.
Hopefully we'll see some improvements.
Yeah.
That is true, yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's definitely some big stuff there. But let me check in with the chat real quick, and then we'll move forward here. I see some good old DLSS conversation here. Let's see. You guys are talking about SOCs and orange chips. And...
Oh wait! People are talking orange. Oh
yeah, Birdman Senpai is going to town.
They're getting very technical in there.
This is where
Birdman Senpai says that Nintendo is working with Nvidia. We kind of know what chip they're going to use. Plus, they can use DLSS 2.0 or 2.1, so it's not going to even matter.
Technically it'd be like 2.1.
Also, I looked this up because I had a vague memory of this happening, and it was true. Is that in 2014 we actually had a Bayonetta 2 specific direct, which is actually really kind of cool. I didn't know. I had like a vague memory of this happening, and I wanted to make sure, but it did happen. So maybe it's possible that they could do a Bayonetta 3 direct at some point.
And it's really interesting because what if we're in a situation where we're complaining about not getting a major Nintendo Direct, but what they might do instead is just have a whole bunch of game-specific directs. Because think about this for a second, right? I brought this up on Twitter earlier today with the whole Metroid Prime Remake rumor, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Like, what if we get a Metroid Direct? Because I've talked about it all year. I believe Metroid Prime Remake is coming out, and the rumors seem to be sort of supporting my belief, right? If we get that, what's the plan for everything else? Part of the new information we got today, though, is that it's not just Prime Remake. Prime 2 and 3 are also in the plans. They weren't just completely canceled. They're going to be coming, but they're not going to be as substantial of remasters. Maybe something more basic. Maybe probably something closer to maybe a Skyward Sword HD sort of remaster. And those will come out between Prime 1 Remake and Prime 4.
Yeah, but the Prime Remake, I'm starting to believe that just for the reason that they're saying it's only going to be Prime 1, which is such a Nintendo thing to do. Is like not give you the trilogy, but just Prime 1.
Yeah. But, what they're also saying, though, since this Prime 1 Remake is... I'm using Remake and Remasters interchangeable because it's a whole spectrum of what you define as a remaster, what you define as a remake. Yeah. But what's being said here is that this is more of a significant remaster, right? Like some of the rumors have talked about how Retro Studios actually had a new engine that they were playing around with, and this is what they've built Prime 4 off of. So
yeah, maybe if that's the case, then I'm cool with Metroid Prime 4 being like that, or not Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Prime 1 if it comes out later this year, because that would be what they use to kind of test around, I'm sure, with how Metroid Prime 4 is going to be. So they could get this game out and then also have Metroid Prime 4 be based around that. But if it's just the Wii game or the GameCube game, but the assets and everything are just bumped up to 1080p just so that it's on the Switch now
for $60.
If it's only that for $60, I would be pretty disappointed.
Zelda can get away with it because of the power of that brand. Mm-hmm. Metroid can't. Partially because
Metroid
of
will
the
have
brand.
like the few hardcore fans who will buy it, but it will do even worse than like how it
won't be
normally does.
successful. I mean,
Yeah,
take a
no,
look
it-
at
I also
Xenoblade
think it'd
Chronicles
be kind
Definitive
of a
Edition.
waste of Retro Studios' time. The only reason that the only helpful thing that would be for them is getting to grips a little bit with the Switch's hardware, but not even that much because it wouldn't be in like newer engine pushing the Switch.
Yeah,
So
the other
they
thing,
wouldn't
though,
even
right,
learn that much.
is that there's been a shortage of Metroid recently. There hasn't been a shortage of Zelda or Mario, right? So when we get these more basic remasters of Mario and Zelda, it's kind of fine because there's Mario and Zelda coming out every year. There isn't Metroid coming out every year. And the brand's not nearly as strong. And I was bringing up Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I'm kind of anticipating this Metroid Prime remaster be something akin to that level of a remaster, where it almost is. It's almost done to the point where it's pretty much on par with a modern game visually. There may be some artifacts from its initial build, but there's also new content in there and a slew of quality of life updates.
Yeah,
Like, it's gonna almost be a remaster. Not quite, technically, but it's gonna be substantial. But anyway, the reason I brought it up now is just because, what if next week Nintendo's like, okay, here's a Metroid Direct. They're gonna focus on talking about Metroid Prime, but they'll also say, hey, 2 and 3 will come at a later date, and also here's a sneak peek at Metroid Prime 4. You know, like,
Yep. And I
they
think
could
that's
have it
possible
like a
too.
10-minute Metroid Direct. Like, that's not
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, people were saying that maybe Metroid Prime 4 is finally going to get like a little tease of something this year anyway, because earlier this year, like in April, the Retro Studios banner changed on their Twitter to like
Right.
something with Samus, and people were like, "Oh, it's time! We're finally getting Metroid. Something's going to happen." And we didn't get anything because we assumed it would be at E3, which obviously we know how that ended up. But yeah,
Right.
But we still may get that news, just in a different way. So,
Yeah.
going back to what I'm saying, though, obviously we don't know how things are going to pan out. It may just be like a Twitter drop. Like, we may just see a trailer for Metroid Prime Remake in a couple weeks, and it's just going to be like kind of like the Paper Mario Origami King situation, which would
Yeah.
be fine. I prefer it to be a little bit more fanfare than that, but, you know,
Yeah.
that may be how it goes. But what if we do get like a Bayonetta Direct, right? What if we do get a Splatoon Direct? What if we do get a Metroid Direct? That would be sick. And then what if we get like a Breath of the Wild 2 / Switch Plus Pro situation in January? And then all of a
Yeah, or,
sudden,
like, some type
we have
of-
way more content than we anticipated, but it's more focused. Also, I still think we need like a Treehouse segment for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Just saying. I think we need to see that game actually being played in the open world at some
that's
point.
really kind of weird with how that game. I feel like the first trailer like was cool, and then the second trailer, like the second drop of information that they do in June, is usually supposed to be pretty big, but they
Yeah.
didn't make it as big this time around for some reason. Where it's like this is really the one that they should have. Like Sword and Shield. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a June Direct for
Right.
that in 2019, right before E3.
Right.
And they showcased a lot of stuff there. They showed like some new Pokemon. They got to see like Wooloo and Dreadnought and stuff.
Yeah.
But they talked about like the game mechanic, the whole Dynamaxing. They showed off some characters, like the champion
Wild
and
areas
some of the
were
characters like
revealed.
that.
And
Yeah,
then
the
they
wild
had a
area, that was a whole
recap
big new
trailer
feature.
with slightly more footage in the Direct, and then they had a major Treehouse segment after that. Like, there was a way
and
more
like
information
the thing
for
was
Pokemon then.
the thing with Sword and Shield was that was literally just like a basic Pokemon game too. And this is the
Yeah.
first ever open world game where you would actually want to show us how the gameplay is going to be different than what we've been used to for the past 20 years. So
And yet they've shown
it's
us
just
less.
so weird. Like this, like the one that's actually doing so much new stuff that really requires more gameplay is the one where they decided to stay silent. It's just really
It is
confusing.
strange.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to talk about it. Like, I was thinking, like, I've been wondering, am I being maybe a little bit too optimistic when I say I think they're going to have a Treehouse segment for at least Scarlet and Violet? But I just thought about it. Last year, we had Treehouse segments for pretty much all their major games, right? And then even in the pandemic year, we had a Treehouse that came out for Pikmin 3 Deluxe and for Age of Calamity, which was basically their holiday lineup.
Mhm.
So
there was also one for Paper Mario too.
Was there? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So if that's
Yeah.
the case, those are kind of like the new games for the Switch in 2020. Paper Mario was an actual new game, right? Pikmin 3 wasn't. Why can't we get at least a couple Treehouse segments this year when it's not a pandemic year? You know? So I don't think we're done with getting information. I think we're just getting the information in a way we didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wasn't it Jeff Grubb who said that he thought that there would be multiple presentations spread out?
Sure. I guess the question is, what does multiple mean? Is multiple just 2?
So far, we've had 2.
Well, we're gonna have 2 starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I know what you meant. I'm just kind of being an ass. But like I guess my fear though, right, is the partner showcase tomorrow, the end of that series of shows, and does it stop at 2, or does it become a 3 of 4? Which is why I suggested the possibility of there being a Metroid Direct next week. That's kind of a pipe dream, but maybe we do get something else next week.
I still definitely think that they could have something first party focused, because I think they wanted to talk about Xenoblade, because if they have something first party focused, it's gonna be like 2 or 3 weeks before that game comes out. Way too late for you to be talking, like blowing the lid on that game. Like it's too
unless of course it's like a remaster or like an older game like Metroid, because the only time that
I'm
happened
talking
was
like it's too close to Xenoblade 3.
Oh yeah,
that's why they had the Xenoblade 3 Direct instead.
Yeah.
So even if they did like a first party showcase, it would be too close at this point. But
also, we can't wait that long in the year to make announcements, right? Like, I know some people bring up 3D All-Stars, how that was announced like 2 weeks before its release, but those are
old games.
Those are old games. Those are Mario games, by the way, like the most powerful brand in terms of gaming, right? And that was a limited release, and that was a one-off. It's never happened before. Most of the time, there's at least like 3 or 4 months before a game is announced and when it comes out. Now, remasters tend to have shorter windows, but still, we gotta anticipate if let's say Metroid Prime Remake is coming out this November, as the rumors are suggesting. When do they announce it? I think the latest they can announce it is August. The absolute latest. Keep in mind, it's not Mario, it's Metroid, right? Look at how they marketed Metroid Dread last year. They marketed Metroid Dread harder than any other game. If you consider all the stuff they did for at E3.
It's like the biggest marketing push they've made for a game like ever.
Right. But I think
they changed their whole like Twitter banner. They changed their whole profile picture.
It was
and then every week or so they had like those like what were they called, like research updates or something like that.
The Dread
right?
reports, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly those things. Yeah.
So I think it would be strange for them to just wait until right before Metroid Prime is supposed to come out to start marketing it. So my perspective is, we can't be that far off for more announcements, unless the rumor is false.
Yeah.
Something I want to point out.
It could also be too, because like I feel like we get Metroid Prime rumors every year. Right?
Sure. I mean, it's a good point. This is a separate thing, but I was gonna say, but I'm kind of tooting my own horn here, or the horn of both Brandon and I. But last week we talked about how the 29th didn't seem quite right because of the investors meeting, but also because of weird localization issue stuff or time zone stuff. And we suggested maybe the presentation happens on the 28th. Well, it's the 28th and not the 29th. So we were kind of right on that. But going back to the Metroid stuff and the rumors, like, there have been a lot of rumors. I do feel, though, that for a while, there were the Prime Trilogy rumors, which then changed to the Prime Remake rumors. But in terms of release timing, from the people that have been talking about it, they've been pretty consistent. And now what we learned today, it's actually all sort of kind of coming together. So initially, I believe Emily Rogers heard that they were working on the Prime Trilogy, but she wasn't sure if it was going to be all in one pack or not. And then as time progressed, they learned more, and they heard that they're working on this more robust Metroid Prime Remake remaster. But now today, Jeff Grubb has gotten some more definitive information, and he's saying Prime Remake Remaster coming out for the anniversary of this holiday, but 2 and 3 won't be as substantial, but are also coming at some point between now and the release of Prime 4. So then all of a sudden, the initial rumor that talked about Prime Trilogy wasn't so much false, just more of a situation where we didn't understand all the details yet. Maybe because development's fluid, and at the time, not even Nintendo or its developers knew what they were going to do quite yet. So what I'm arguing now, right, is that the sources we've gotten the rumors from, like Emily Rogers, Jeff Grubb, Direct Feed Games, they've been pretty reliable. So, you know, I buy into it. Not to mention, they also were talking about 2D Metroid early last year. What came? Metroid Dread. They were right. So, you know, I think they've actually been pretty good recently in terms
There's
of
also
the
that
rumors.
there's also that leaked Fire Emblem game that happened like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and everybody was going like crazy over that. Like there were some screenshots and stuff, which still haven't been disproven, but
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
a whole other beast, right? I
even
felt
know
like
that
that could have been, yeah. There's nothing like crazy showing off. There's like like a red and blue character. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I don't think it's this year, but I feel like that would have been something that could have been in a direct if it was gonna happen.
Yeah, it could have been in a direct teasing something for the year beyond. But maybe what they want to do is they want to focus on this Warriors Fire Emblem game right now. And maybe that's another reason why they don't have the direct, because they do want to announce a new Fire Emblem, but they want to give that some breathing room first, right? So maybe there is a direct in, say, July, maybe early August. I feel like that's, I don't know, I think early August is probably pushing it, but that can maybe be when they do it. Because as you noted earlier, Arrow, maybe August is the month where we don't have anything for the second half of the year. But what they do is that they have the direct then.
Yeah, and they just announced their end of the year plans there.
Yeah, and then it's close enough to September where if there's not September direct, people won't complain. And if there is a plan for, say, a January presentation, that's not that large of a gap in between presentations. I could kind of see that. I think it's conceivable.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Right.
I mean, I feel like we've pretty much kind of talked about the Metroid situation. You know, do you buy into this Metroid Prime rumor? Are you a little skeptical?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's possible, but I'm not going to be like too hopeful for it just because of the reason that we get it like every year. It seems there's always some type of Metroid Prime trilogy, Metroid Prime remaster type of rumor. I feel like part of it is kind of like it's just like, you know, we're going to keep saying it until it happens, but I don't know. Maybe this time, because it is coming from different people, it could actually be something.
Yeah, I hear you there. I believe the sources, right? But I also think when it comes there's like, I mean, there's different types of rumors, right? There's rumors you get like on your 4chan and your Reddits, and these rumors you get from like credible journalists or industry insiders, and have been that way for years.
Yep, exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But I feel like even when you get it from those credible insiders, sometimes things are a little misleading, so a little bit off. For example, most recent example is when Alana Pierce said, "Oh yeah, there's gonna be a direct on the 29th." Okay, that's possible, but
Yeah. I mean, technically she was right.
Technically, she was right, but I think sometimes people may misinterpret the information, right? Like you assume, oh, it's got to be a general Nintendo Direct. There's going to be a Direct in June.
And like,
why wouldn't it be that?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, that could very well just be something that she didn't know. Like, she might have just heard, like, you know, Direct on the 29th, and it still does have the word Direct in the name, so technically she wasn't wrong.
Right, and she never said what kind of Direct it would be. And 28th, 29th, that could be simply like a time zone thing, you know? And that's what it is. Like, sometimes they may have information, but there'll be some things about that information that will be misinterpreted, some plans may change. So those are all possibilities for sure. But, you know, one thing I want to get to is I feel like oftentimes timing is where things get really thrown off. Like, the content of things may be right, but the timing of when we see them, that's where, you know, there's a little bit more room for error. Because, I mean, we make assumptions, right? The same way all people made the assumption that we would get a general direct because it was in June. No, it's not happening in June. We're getting a partner instead.
Yep. Stuff always gets, like, rearranged and moved around and stuff.
Yeah. But, you know, obviously only time will really tell. But I will say, coming back to my point from earlier, if there is a Prime remake coming, and it's coming out, say, October or November of this year, they gotta announce it soon. Like, I think the latest they can wait is August before, and if we get to like September, I'm thinking maybe it is coming still, but it's not coming out this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. But is there anything else you guys want to sort of address? I'm probably just gonna check in with the chat here, and then close things out soon.
No, I
Not
think you
the
covered
top of
it.
my
I
head.
think I'm probably gonna have to head out in a couple minutes anyway. But if you're good to go, then I'll probably just like stay with you here for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're nearing the end here. So let's just check in with the chat, and then we'll close things out. So I see Kitano Tatsu added me here. By the way, guys, if you have any final questions or ideas you want brought up, put them in the comments or the chat now, and we'll try and get to them before we close things out in a few minutes. Kitano Tatsu added me. Nintendo Prime made a good point earlier today. There are already 11 out of 12 known first-party Switch games this year. There's not much time for anything else to come out. Yeah, I mean, there's a decent amount of games. There have been years where we've gotten like 20 published games, so it could maybe be more. But we probably do know about the majority. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah,
I
it's
think they
just
have
really
like
one or
their
two more
basic
games that
plan
might
is
come
already
out.
pretty much set for this year.
Yeah, definitely the major stuff for sure. Were you saying the same thing, Brandon?
Yeah, I was just saying like maybe one or two more games that we don't know about, and that's all really I'd expect.
And even those games, like I feel like they're probably like one of those like B tier types of games that are not like insanely huge, but like a Metroid Prime remaster fits into there. But they're definitely not hiding like some major type of huge game.
Splatoon 3, Pokemon are the major sellers.
Yeah, those are going to be the ones that are going to be like pushing the Switches out this holiday. Like that's what people. Yeah, that's what the kid is going to be asking for. Like like I want to play the new Pokemon generation for Christmas or whatever. Like that's what they're going to be banking on for sure.
And I'll say that probably the third best-selling game that could be coming out in the second half of this year it probably would be Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, right? It'd probably be more than the Pikmin if that's the thing. I think
Strikers might be higher a little bit, but I don't know.
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean,
Strikers is also like a Mario, just Mario Sports game. They sell pretty well.
I know that Mario Rabbids sold like a pretty high number, like at least 7 or 8 million or something, maybe beyond that.
Oh, did it sell that much? Damn.
I was like 3 or 4 million.
Yeah, I thought it was like 1 or 2 million. Then I would have been like, okay. But if it's 7 million, then you're probably right. I think the sequel will probably do more. I was thinking like low millions range.
So Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle apparently sold 7.5 million.
Oh yeah. I did not expect that. So I definitely agree with you there. Then
Mario brand.
Then the Mario sports games sell around like 3-4 million,
which is high. Sure. I mean, the point is that those are kind of like the known things, right? Like Metroid Prime Remake, maybe it outsells Metroid Dread, but Metroid Dread last we heard was around 2.9. Like I'm probably
like 2.8,
past 3,
2.9,
which would make it the best-selling Metroid game yet. So even if Prime Remake passes it by, let's say, 1 million or 2, that's still well under what Mario Rabbids, the initial one sold, right? So it's probably not going to be the third best-selling game.
Because Prime was always sold better than the 2D games, so I do wonder if it will sell better. Because you are doing like a remaster remake versus a brand new game, but 3D sells better than 2D, so I'm curious to see what the numbers will be, actually.
Yeah, I'm also very curious. I mean, also, depending on how ambitious this remaster remake is, right? Like, I mean, it could be something else to point out here, and it kind of goes back to what Jeff Grubb was saying. He's talking about how this game's going to come out for the holiday, which might suggest it's Nintendo's big holiday release. Now, some of you may say, well, Pokemon's the big holiday release. Yes, but Metroid would be something that's internally developed by Nintendo. While we do get Pokemon stuff, we also usually get something from Nintendo internally that comes out around holiday as well. Yeah, so Metroid Remake might be like the internal Nintendo project that's meant to come out alongside Pokemon for the holiday.
And that could be like I think the time frame is just estimated, right? Like that it's November, but could very well be like a December game too, like a very first week of December type of game.
True. Or on the flip side, it could be maybe an October game, right? Which would add more credence to the idea of it getting announced sooner than later. Definitely, I mean, I think there's like a 3-month window there. It could be a December release. Like we can't, that's totally a possibility as well. And there may be another little thing there, right? Maybe Pikmin, it comes out this year. Like that's like a smaller B-ish title that could also probably be fit in. I could see that happening. I don't think we're getting 2D Mario anymore. I speculated that as a possibility, but with there being no Nintendo Direct announced,
Yeah, it would have been announced if there was a Direct this month.
yeah.
Which is weird because those games sell a lot, and like they could definitely make a new one. We haven't had a new one in like a decade. Because the last one was New Super Mario Bros.
I think
U.
they're waiting for a brand new idea. They're wanting to do something that's super unique because the new series wasn't like obviously it sold fairly well, but it was mostly just that casual fans who liked it, and the hardcore fans didn't really enjoy it very much. So I think they're waiting for something that's like really new and exciting that they can do with the series.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I see Having Hope 5 added me. Having Hope 5 was simply asking, how's Ruby? Ruby's doing well. She's actually downstairs with the dogs right now. For those who don't know, Ruby is my baby cat. But she's fine. Doing splendid. Let's see here. You guys, I see a lot of you guys are just talking about all this hardware stuff. I don't even know where to jump in. There's just so much.
I would love to go discuss things with you guys in the comments, but I'm a bit busy being on the podcast.
Kick It Smooth says, I think Metroid Prime Remake is a misinterpretation. So, I mean, earlier you said Kick It Smooth insiders can misinterpret info. Okay. So, also, I see you, Curie, there saying hello to me. Hello there. I'm curious how you think it could be a misinterpretation. I've been calling it remake, but it's been referred to as remaster. Do you mean in that way, or do you mean you think it's coming in as a trilogy pack?
That is a good point of clarification.
Like, there's a number of ways it could be misinterpreted. Maybe it get announced this November for the anniversary, but it doesn't come out until next year. Like those are all like potential interpretations, right? That may or may not be correct. I don't know. I think there's probably got to be something internally developed by Nintendo that comes out this year. 2020, we didn't quite get that, but also that was a pandemic year. I don't think that happens this time around. But again, we are getting a partner showcase 2 weeks after when we would have gone in a normal direct, and we still don't know when we're getting normal direct, right? So maybe Nintendo is in a weird space right now where they're trying to space things out a little bit and prepare for what might be maybe a next generation starting next year, right? So it could be a positioning spacing issue. That could be why we're in the situation we're in now. It might be related to why Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade were sort of swapped, right? Like, we don't know just how much ramifications there were from whatever sort of behind the scenes decision Nintendo may have made, right? Maybe they moved up Zelda, maybe they moved up Mario, and because they moved those up, they had to move other things around coming out this year just to position things a little bit differently for their holiday. Like, we don't know why they're making the decisions they're making, because there's so many things that could be going into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. But as I said earlier, like, there's good games coming regardless. Like, I think if you don't care about news, if you just get games when they come, like, you pretty much have nothing to worry about, because every month almost we're getting one or two quality games that are published by Nintendo, and there's still some decent third-party stuff coming out as well. So
yeah,
games are coming, and tomorrow we're gonna get some interesting news. I could see myself doing some sort of stream tomorrow talking about it. But yeah,
I'm probably not gonna wake up to stream that one, but I will see tomorrow, like, for sure, when I wake up and just see what announcements happened.
Yeah,
because I do think 9 a.m. for us if we're all EST
Eastern time, so it'll be 8 a.m. for you, Brandon.
That's literally when I'm gonna wake up to go to work at 9.
Yeah, I'll be at work, so I won't do the stream until after work tomorrow, probably around this time or 8. Yeah. But yeah, guys. Anyways, thanks for coming. It was a good show. I enjoyed it. Arrow, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was actually a real pleasure having this discussion with you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, make sure to check out his channel. An awesome Nintendo YouTuber. It's linked in the description below. And also make sure to check out his other social media that I assume you could probably find through your YouTube page.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
All right, peace.
Bye, guys.
Cool.